The advice and opinions expressed by the host of Autism Live and her guests are meant solely as suggestion and should not be in any way construed as child-specific advice. The Center for Autism and Related Disorders advises working with a board-certified behavior analyst who has experience with autism before starting any intensive behavioral intervention. Any choices you make in determining your child's treatment are completely at your own discretion.
Good morning and welcome to Autism Live. I'm Shannon Penrod and we are webcasting to you live from the Center for Autism and Related Disorders headquarters in Tarzana, California. If I look happy, it's because I am, because it's Wednesday. Very excited. In just a few minutes, we're going to be joined by Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, a true visionary in the field of autism. If you're looking for an expert to ask questions about autism, we have her here today. You have the opportunity right now to be asking questions, and I'm going to have Emily cycle through some of the different ways that you can get in contact with us. And while she's doing that, I want to remind you that the only place that you can watch us live is at www.autism-live.com. When you go there, there's a desktop, there's a box. And in that box, you can put your cursor, write whatever you would like, a suggestion, a comment, a question, hit enter, and it shows up magically on my screen so that I can ask Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh your question in real time. Now, if you're watching us in any of the ways that you can see us taped, I want to remind you that she's with us every Wednesday morning, and you don't have to wait till Wednesday to ask your question. A lot of times you guys are writing in. We have some emails that have come in the last couple of days, and that's an entirely acceptable way to communicate your question for Ask Dr. Doreen. Without further ado, it is time for Ask Dr. Doreen.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is the
Dr. Doreen is an expert in autism.
Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh is a visionary in the field of autism, and now you get to ask her questions on Ask Dr. Doreen. Welcome to Ask Dr. Doreen, and welcome Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. So
Pleasure.
thrilled to have you here this morning.
Thank you very much. Always fun to be here.
I love to be here and hear your questions and to hear your answers. I learned so much from what you have to tell all of us. I do want to start out by reminding everyone that Dr. Granpeesheh won't be giving child-specific advice because that would be a disservice to your children. When you guys write in, obviously you can't tell us everything that's going on, but you're very adept at giving us very general advice that we can apply and use in useful ways.
I hope so. I mean, I hope we're helping some parents. It seems like we are because we're getting more and more questions.
And more emails that are coming in where people are saying, thank you so much for taking the time to do this. It really is a wonderful thing.
It really is a pleasure. I think that some of these issues pertain to pretty much so many of the families. I mean, I love the questions because I know there's many others who will want to know the answer to those same exact questions.
Absolutely. So we really appreciate when you write in your questions. I want to start with one that came in via email on Monday of this week. Somebody said, my grandson is 12 years old and high-end autistic. Why is there nobody to teach him to talk? I want to know if he's happy, if he's being looked after properly. As a concerned grandmother, I have a lot of uneasy feelings, and he cannot convey his feelings or his wants, and that is troubling me as he comes from a split home. Can he not be taught to talk more than his 6 words? He says, I'm worried for him in years to come when I may not be here for him. Is there some kind of computer I can get him so he can relay his feelings to my son and me? A lot of emotion there, but a grandmother who's wanting to communicate with this young man.
Right. Very, very touching and sad.
Yeah.
Yes, of course. I mean, especially when you have an individual who already has 6 words, there's no question that they can have more. So that's the number one answer to that is yes, absolutely, he can talk. You know, I wish that someone had worked with him a little bit more when he was younger because and I'm guessing that the 6 words that he uses are his very, very basic needs. So this is just, you know, too big of a concept for me to be able to be very helpful. I hope that I'm helpful a little bit, but yes, I would really, really recommend that you get a behaviorist to start teaching your son how to talk, how to communicate. With 6 words, you can be pretty assured that he's going to develop more language, or he is capable of developing more language. However, obviously it's important to have other means of communication that are easier for your child right now. The iPads are pretty good. The kids tend to like the iPads, and there's a lot of programs that are available for the iPads, communication type programs, or these are visual programs that are basically iconic, so there's pictures of things that he might want to express, and he just has to hit the picture. But like for instance, Proloquo is one of them that you can purchase. But having said that, and I think Proloquo is a couple of $100 now, I think.
Yes.
And it's one of the things that we try to fund through Act Today. So our nonprofit organization, Autism Care and Treatment Today, or ACT Today, is a place where you should probably, if you can go online, you can email and get the grant information. And if you can't afford the Proloquo and the iPad, in many cases we do fund those. We've done a lot of funding for the technology. And it's important to get him something that will help him communicate freely now, but that does not mean that that's enough. That's not enough. You know, please, for an individual who is saying 6 words, please do have a professional teach him language, because he will be capable of using his language, and it will be so much better for him. So that's really important. Now, you're asking about technology. We have 2 sites that are very useful to people. One is the IBT site, which is the Institute for Behavioral Training, and on that site you will get a lot of training. So there's just videos of training, and they will, if you have a teacher who might be interested, or an aide, or there's a section for parents, there's a section for professionals. You can. These are very, very inexpensive modules.
Yes.
You can
sometimes as low as $10.
$10, right, for each module, and you can go in there and just pick your modules, and then you own them and you can basically go in there and learn everything that's in there, and that just teaches you the techniques, sort of the how to interact and how to teach things. Then the other site is Skills, and on our Skills site, Skills is a sort of a curriculum for lessons and lesson plans and all this sort of stuff, and it's a little bit too complex, I think, for parents, but it's really good if a professional or teacher wants to use it. And it will give you very, very detailed advice about how to teach each skill, each language area, each word, etc. And it'll take you through many years. If you become a user, you can actually go through and learn the next lesson and the next lesson, and it'll take your child way beyond just language and teach we teach almost any skills, and it's all demonstrated on Skills. So yeah, on the sad side, I guess, is that your child sounds like they could have had more intervention and they didn't. But on the positive side, it sounds like you have a intelligent, smart guy who is going to be able to learn a lot of stuff. So
absolutely.
Good
Great
luck. It'll be fun. It'll be a fun journey.
Wonderful. We're going to take a short break and come back more with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Keep your questions coming in.
Skills is an online program that provides assessment, curriculum, positive behavior support planning for challenging behavior, and progress tracking, and it does this all in one place. The Skills assessment and curriculum addresses 8 areas of development, which even includes advanced higher level areas such as executive functions and cognition, which pretty much makes Skills the only ABA-based set of curricula for teaching more complex skills, things like problem solving, planning, self-management, perspective taking, and even inferring and predicting others' private events. Skills is a 4-step system. Step 1 is to add the child to your account. Step 2 is to start assessment. The Skills assessment is the only ABA-based assessment with psychometric research demonstrating the language subscale to have excellent reliability. Every area of human functioning and typical child development from infancy to adolescence was researched, making the Skills assessment the most comprehensive of its kind in the world, and we're quite proud of that.
Skills is easy to use. Simply click Start Assessment and begin answering questions. Or simply type in a keyword, find specific activities to assess, and add activities to treatment. Step 3. Choose activities. Once you've completed the assessment, Skills selects from a pool of 4,000 activities categorized by age, level, and skill type to provide you with exactly those activities each child needs. Start by choosing a curriculum, then a lesson, and finally an activity. Click the information icon to view prerequisites, ages in which targets develop, examples, and IEP goals. Click the video icon to watch a short video. Once you've identified an activity you want to teach, adding activities to treatment is a snap. Step 4. Start treatment. Here you can access customizable activity lesson details, add your own customized targets and exemplars, and edit an activity status such as introducing or mastering it. You can even print handouts such as worksheets, tracking forms, visual aids, and other materials. Skills also offers multiple progress charts mapping curriculum progress, lesson progress, and cumulative number of activities and targets mastered over time. The Skills language curriculum is categorized by verbal behavior type so that users can identify progress for verbal operants, such as echoics, mans, tax, and interverbals.
Skills is one of the only programs that provides the ability to write behavior intervention plans, or BIPs, for challenging behavior.
With just a few clicks, the outline of the behavior intervention plan is written for you and ready to be printed and implemented.
You can learn more about Skills today and get started by visiting us at www.skillsforautism.com, or you can call us at 877-975-4559. Skills. Progress starts here.
Welcome back to Ask Dr. Doreen. We have with us right now autism expert Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh. Thank you so much. We're answering questions that you guys have written in. I want to go to excuse me. I want to go to a very lengthy letter that we have received, and I'm going to consolidate it here because and I just want to thank all of you for the letters that you guys have been writing us. Some of you find it easier to write on email, and we really enjoy and appreciate it. But to cut to the chase, we have a family that the child has a diagnosis, started school, there was an IEP process, and like a lot of people at the IEP process, the school said, here's our plan, and the parent was relieved that there was a plan.
Sure.
And said, okay.
Right.
And they started the process, and the child hasn't been making progress, and they saw a note in the child's bag that said, you're not, basically to paraphrase, you're not behaving, so you're going to the special room. The parent pursued it and discovered that any time the child is engaging in any kind of difficult behavior at all, they're being sent out of the room some other place as a punishment to go work with their behavior specialist.
Right.
And when the parent talked to the teacher got frustrated and said, well, maybe you should pursue a diagnosis for your child. And there was that moment of horror of the parent standing there and said to the teacher, my child does have a diagnosis that's in her IEP. She was in your classroom for a reason. And that horrible moment of realizing you have been entrusted with the care of my child for a length of time, and you do not know what's happening.
Oh, my gosh.
Yeah, she has gotten the help of an advocate, but she wrote in to say that things are moving along for her, but some advice for parents, other parents who don't have the benefit of an advocate. If you're in a position where you see that the school is not doing what they should she wanted your advice.
Right. Yeah. Get an advocate, get an attorney. There are so many stories that I have heard over the years from the parents. Some are absolutely horrific.
Yeah.
You know, I mean, I've had children who were tied down on the toilet so that they would go. I mean, just horrible things. And this is not a very good story either. You know, I read that letter earlier, Shannon, as you know, and I'm not even sure that the child was getting a therapist when they were sent for punishment.
Yeah, I'm not sure about that either.
I think that you know, in this case, for instance, it's really interesting because, of course, removing a child when they have any kind of problem from the classroom environment is actually rewarding, because the child probably is showing problem behavior because they don't want to be there to begin with, and so by removing them, you're teaching the child that this is an effective problem behavior.
Yeah.
Keep doing this problem behavior and we'll take you out every time. Right. Secondly, obviously, there was no plan in place and or training. And thirdly, the most horrific part of this, I think, is that a teacher is not even aware that a child's on an IEP or has a diagnosis. And this just really disturbs me, because, what is, an IEP is an individualized education plan. And the fact that we go through so much expense and trouble and time and anxiety for the family and so on and so forth to identify an IEP and to write it up in a way that's meaningful for the child, and then the teacher doesn't even know that the child has a diagnosis. I mean, that's just ridiculous. And I have to say that to the same extent, I'll say this: in some of the school districts that we at CARD, we write a lot of the IEP reports because we're intensely involved with our kids and we want them to learn as much as they possibly can. So our IEP reports will sometimes end up being 50 pages, and we'll have 20, 30 goals at any given time frame. And many schools will have told us that they will not accept more than 3 goals. I mean, which I think is just, it's kind of like, I want to give you help, but you want to limit me, or, and this is a child who is able to learn, but over the course of the year, we really only have 3 major things that it just doesn't make any sense to me. So it's not that school people are evil. That's not the case. In fact, people go into the field of education of our children because they care about children and because they're interested in helping our kids.
They certainly don't do it for the money.
They certainly don't do it for the money, that's right. So, but the truth is, they are overwhelmed. The education system in this country is just not very supportive. I don't know that it is in many other countries either, but I know that in the U.S., teachers often have very, very limited resources, extremely limited. I mean, schools as a whole have limited resources, but teachers, I found out a few years ago, actually a lot of teachers put, all those beautiful educational things in their rooms, they purchase those themselves. They put those up themselves. I mean, I find it ridiculous that schools can't afford to provide those types of things, and teachers actually go into their own pockets to do these types of things for our kids. So I think that's pretty amazing. There's very little training for the teachers. I mean, we have provided some training to school districts, and some of the districts are so large that it's just impossible to give them a lot of training because they can't afford it, or they have to train hundreds of people at the same time. Those are just real problems that are bureaucratic and take a long time. But yes, there are advocates. In California, there are, this parent, I think, was not in California.
In Florida.
In California, of course, there are a lot of advocates that you can contact. In every state, I'm pretty sure if you Google, special education law, special education advocacy, you will find organizations. The FEET groups that are generally parent groups will be able to guide you to find advocates always. It's very important to watch for these things. One of the things I tell our parents is that even if your school allows you only to go in for an observation of 20 minutes, do it once a week at least, or twice a week. Try to check and make sure things are fine. Just drop in. Some schools actually have cameras now where they allow parents to log in and watch the classroom for a period of time. Do what you can to watch your child in any way possible. Yeah,
absolutely. And I will mention too, we had Areva Martin on the show on Monday from the Special Needs Network, and they have a program called PAM, the Parent Advocacy Mentor Program, and they are expanding it this year to be online, and you can register to do that program so that you yourself can become a better advocate for your child, and it's parents teaching other parents.
That's awesome.
Really an amazing program. And it was just only in California and mostly Southern California, but this year they're expanding it, so really it could be worldwide.
Terrific.
Very exciting. That's Special Needs Network, so you can check that out. Okay, continuing on with another question. I actually want to go to another very lengthy email that we got from a wonderful grandparent who has described, and again, I'm not going to read the whole letter, but that she worked for many years as a speech and language pathologist, and so she recognizes some issues. She has a family member that she has seen some concern with, and she brought it up to the family, very young, 3.5 years old, very high functioning, but sees that there's some concern. The family has asked her not to be concerned. We don't know whether there's a cause for concern or not, but she's wanting to know how much she should push it, and very aware of the fact that early intervention is key in a lot of cases with autism, but wants to know, are there studies there to show that with high functioning autism, that is it still key getting in as early as possible?
Yeah, that's a very good question. There are no studies to really focus on high functioning versus low functioning and so on, because we don't really differentiate that way. But I would say from personal experience that it actually, of course, the younger the better. Yes, definitely. Some of the what we consider high-level skills, I guess, are the executive functioning skills. And some of the very, very early aspects of executive functioning occur before the age of 1. So, for instance, the whole, at 9 months, we develop this ability to, an infant will look at mom's eyes, for instance, and think, what is mom thinking about, and will then track where mom is looking. So you'll see 9 to 12 month old babies looking at someone's eyes and then looking where they're looking. And that is the beginning of joint attention, which is a huge factor in our overall future development, and it's one of the executive functions. And so those types of, so if what I'm saying, I guess, is that it's important to get involved with a behavioral program, but only one as early as possible with a high functioning child, but only one that knows how to, what and how to teach higher functioning children. Because what happens, I think, with some of our higher functioning kids, especially PDD, Asperger's kids, is that they will, family might find an ABA provider, and then the ABA provider won't know what to do, because they'll start doing rote language stuff that the child already knows, and then it becomes useless or boring, or the child's it becomes punitive for the child, and it's not really accomplishing very much. And then the parents become convinced that this isn't the right thing. For the higher functioning kids, you're really supposed to be focusing more on those very, very high level skills, like social cognition skills, executive functioning skills, and all generally the pragmatic language area, all the social conversation area, and so on. So I would say that it would be obviously very good for this child to receive some intervention. Again, did they say what age the child is? It's not
I
3.5 or
3.5.
Okay, so 3.5. However high functioning, if the child is really on the spectrum, or actually, let's put it this way, if the child is really losing skills or not keeping up with peers in terms of functioning, then yes, you need ABA, and you need to do it as soon as possible. And keep in mind that certain really advanced skills don't even occur or develop in our kids until about 5 or 6, and typical kids until about 5 or 6. And those are the very, very abstract concept skills. But, there's a lot of precursor, very important skills that can be taught at 3.5, no question about it. And depending on where the delays are, hopefully the parents will get involved with it.
Well, here's my sort of further question then, because the grandmother expresses that there seems to be some stigma attached to the autism word for the parents.
Right.
And I'm wondering, do you need to even go there?
No,
because
I
you've
don't
said
think
before,
so. I don't care about the label, right?
Right, but if there's a deficit, and what the grandmother is really wanting to see is the deficit addressed,
right?
Maybe not have the battle about the diagnosis per se, but about is there a way that they can get help without the diagnosis?
Of course. I mean, you could identify just the core deficit areas. Like, so one of the things you could do, for instance, is you could go on our skills website and you could have the parent or yourself, if you know the child very well, go in and just get a license. Well, actually, I think you have even a free period, but just go get a license for a month and just go in and answer all the questions on the index, which is an assessment tool. It's a pretty intense assessment tool. It'll ask you thousands of questions, answer them, and then it'll show you all the areas of delay. And who cares about the diagnosis? You'll see exactly where the child is delayed in relation to his or her own same-aged peers.
Right.
So if your child's 3.5 and let's say in the area of language or social or cognition, whatever it is, certain key elements of what you answered we're specifically asking you things that the child should be able to do at his or her age. And if you say no, then those show up in a bar graph that show you exactly how many things are delayed and then also show you how to teach them.
Right.
So, you know, that might be something convincing for the parents so that they don't allow the child to fall behind too much.
Right. A dicey thing.
Very, very tough, yes, absolutely.
Figuring out how much to push it because you don't want to ruin your relationship with your
children.
Yeah.
But you know, they're actually, in some other ways, you're quite blessed because you have a grandmother who's a retired speech pathologist and has the expertise and the knowledge to be able to identify that something's falling behind.
Yeah, absolutely. So we wish you luck with that, and we'd love to hear back from you, what you decide to do and how it works out. I want to ask another question. We're getting questions on the live feature. Let's go there first. Hi, Dr. Doreen and Shannon. My question concerns how to approach the subject of telling my mainstream third grader about his diagnosis. I think that he is approaching that developmental time for understanding. I just want to do it right. How would you tell your child he's 10, more like a 5 or 6-year-old emotionally and socially? Thank you all for all your help always. You and Shannon mean more to me than you'll ever know. That's very sweet.
No,
we appreciate your comments.
Nice. That's very nice.
But this is an area where a lot of people are concerned. How and when do you tell your child about the diagnosis?
Yeah. Oh my gosh, I approach this differently with each of my kids, and so it's very hard for me to generalize my answer here, give you a more generic type of response, because I have some kids who the reason that I want them to know is because they are frustrated with their own lack of ability, let's say, in some area. And I want them to know that we each have delays in different areas and that we work on those delays. And I think that's key to it. Then there's other kids where someone has called them the name, or they've heard it, or they've overheard it or whatever, and they're just very curious, and I never want to really lie to my kids. So I will tell them. But the thing is that how you tell them has more to do with how you explain what autism is. And because of I personally see autism as a transient thing. I don't see it as a lifelong thing. It's easier for me to say, yes, you have currently or had a diagnosis that was called autism. What it means is that you have some problems with language, you had some problems with social stuff. That's basically it. Your language has gotten a lot better, and so on and so forth. And then I go into and explain it. It really depends on the ability of the child, how much they can understand, how much detail can you give them. I talk more about it in terms of something like, I guess, I don't know, dyslexia, perhaps. Something that's more acceptable to children, in our world, I think, and I learn a lot from my own kids who are different ages in school, autism is still seen as this kind of associated with a scary, not so good kind of disorder that means that there's something wrong with you that makes you worse than others or something like that. Whereas things like dyslexia aren't. Right? Dyslexia is kind of like, oh, you see letters differently? Oh, that's kind of cool, So I sort of explain it. I would want to make sure that the way that it's explained to the child is along the same lines. You receive information a little bit differently. It's very much the same thing. You know, you see things differently. You do. You see certain things that are more like, you know, you have a hard time with figure ground discrimination, but at the same time you see or hear things that others don't.
Yeah.
You know, so it's a different set of, your brains just develop differently, and it's just as cool. It's cooler in certain ways. And, you know, obviously there are very cool aspects of this. Another thing is, by the way, you know, we were talking about Max Bruckheimer, and I wanted to just mention that there are a lot of shows now that will show high functioning, like Parenthood. And
it's a great show.
Great show.
He plays Max on the show. Amazing young actor, so
Fabulous.
talented, and a gentleman. When you meet him in person, we were talking about that. A very sweet young man.
Absolutely delightful young man. And so another way to go about it is to actually associate it with a cool personality like that, because the biggest thing about this is you definitely don't want to be telling your child something that's going to make them feel worse about themselves.
Yeah.
And also make sure that you tell your child, or when you do tell your child, you make sure your child understands that it's something they can overcome.
Yeah.
Because even with our kids who don't, you know, completely become typical or typically developing in all ways, they do come out of the diagnosis. I mean, there are a lot of kids that go from 6 symptoms of autism to 2 to 3, and they no longer qualify for diagnosis. So those are the things you need to make sure your child understands.
Yeah. And I think a parent's instinct, too, about finding the right time is so important.
And if there isn't a reason, then I would just wait. If there isn't a reason to share the thing, I would just wait a little bit longer, because the more your child's past it, the easier it'll be for them to receive that information. And honestly, I'm not the right person to you know, I think we should ask some of our recovered kids.
Yeah.
I mean, that's a question we should ask. Yeah, honestly, we should ask, like, how did it make you feel when you were told? I mean, look at some of my recovered kids are superstars. Like, they are so proud of it. They're so proud that they overcame it, that they can talk about it, that they can tell other people how it was, that they can explain what it's like to have these symptoms. I mean, look at Temple Grandin.
Yeah.
There's nothing to be ashamed of here. It's a whole different processing system, and the more we have people like Temple who can actually educate the rest of the world in terms of how you receive information as someone with autism, the more we can help other people get to that point of functioning.
Absolutely. Can I tell you that I was in my son's classroom the other day, and I had one of these ribbons on, and one of the kids asked me, "You wear these ribbons every day, what are they for?" And so I talked about what the ribbons are for, that with ABA the possibilities are infinite, and we talked about what an infinity ribbon is, and I talked a little bit about ABA, and of course, the hand came up and said, "What is autism?" You know, with a 4th grade class, and I have to define this, and so I said, you know, some people with autism, their brain works a little bit differently. They see things a little bit different, and sometimes they have difficulty talking, but not all people, and went through this very short explanation that didn't even begin to cover it, but 4th grade class. And my son's hand raises in the classroom. And I thought, oh, what is he going to say? Oh, you know, what's going to happen? And he said, raise your hand if you have autism or you know somebody who has autism. Right?
Oh, my God.
And this was his thing that he wanted to say. And then it was very interesting because a bunch of hands went up. Right? And he's been in the same class with some of the kids for years, and we've gone in on Autism Awareness Day and read the little book that he and I wrote together. And so some of these kids very well know that he has a diagnosis, but it was very interesting the things that they said. That one girl raised her hand and said, you know, my brother has autism. And everybody was like, oh. And then somebody that I wasn't aware in his classroom said, I might have autism. My parents and I have talked about the fact that I might, but I haven't gotten a diagnosis, but I might have a form of autism.
Oh my God.
And it was this amazing moment in the classroom, and that I had been like, oh, what's going to happen here? And everybody was like, oh, that's cool. And then they went back to what they were doing. And it was no biggie.
That's amazing.
And I do think that sometimes our kids teach us.
Yeah.
You know?
Absolutely. And I think if we can, it'll take a long time, but if we can get away from the stigma of autism is the same as sort of having mental retardation or any kind of retardation, then people will start to understand a little bit more about autism. But I
Yeah.
love that story. That's a crazy story.
It was just,
Oh my
it was last Thursday, and it kind of took my
amazing.
breath away. Excuse me. Oh, and I just had questions up, and I don't know what happened. Hang on one second here, because I had questions that people were asking on our Facebook, and Facebook refreshed. Facebook does not always love me. In any case, I'm scrolling down to find
Today
it.
is Lent, you know, and I decided I'm giving up Facebook for 40 days.
Are you?
I hardly ever really have time to go on Facebook, so I'm very happy that we get to answer some of the questions
Yes.
here.
Okay, so our first question on Facebook today, does a child with autism get worse as they get older?
Yeah, they could get, the answer to that is both, actually. Some get better, some get worse. So certain things get better just because you age out. So certain things definitely get better. So we tend to calm down, obviously. Kids are more hyperactive than adults and so on. So those types of things do. But unless, if you don't have a mode of communication, then challenging behaviors get worse. So in other words, obviously, if you're 2 years old and you get frustrated, you're going to throw a tantrum. If you're 15, you might hit someone.
Okay.
So it's just a matter of making sure that there's adequate communication available to the individual, and that the environment is fair. And I always use that word. It's just strange to use that word. It's such a non-technical word, but the truth is, like anything else, we all can get irritable or upset or anxious or hurt or whatever, and with a lot of our kids and adolescents and adults, we just have to kind of protect them a little bit from the environment, or make sure that the stimuli coming at them in the environment are something, you know, they can handle all the stimulation coming in, that they can communicate their needs adequately so that they don't get frustrated, so that we have to make sure the demands that are placed on them are enough but not too much. We have to make sure that they are sleeping well, that they're eating nutritional foods. You know, all of those types of things will help in determining all that.
I love that you use the word fair. There's a blog that I read on a regular basis, and this last week there was a blog, and the mom had detailed something that had happened with her child. And one of the responses, and it was about the fact that they were asking for an accommodation to make it fair.
Exactly.
And one of the responses that came back from a person who I don't think has a child on the spectrum, the person said, you know what ticks me off about special needs parents is that they constantly want for everybody to treat their kid like everybody else, but then you want special accommodations, and how do you reconcile this? And there was a maelstrom of people saying, step off.
Right.
You know,
Right.
being fair is not about having it all be the same. Sometimes you have to give somebody some extra help in order to make it fair.
That's right. That's exactly right. I mean, a good example of this is, why do some of us wear glasses and others don't? That's really simple. But, you know, people who don't wear glasses won't come and say, hey, you know, why do we have to accommodate this person by giving them glasses?
Yeah.
So that's all we're doing. What
Right.
we're doing is we're modifying certain factors in the environment in order to put our kids on the same playing field. That's all.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And important for us to be able to do that. Oh, and Facebook has gone completely away now. No, we have it. Here we have it. Okay, another person who wrote in and said, what do you do when the school seems to give up on your high school aged child? And we've been hearing this a lot lately. Sticking them in rooms with kids that are younger, giving them stuff to do that is of no use to them.
Yeah.
Not coming up with substantive goals.
Right,
A
right.
lot of parents are complaining of this of high school students and asking for advice
That's really
about what to
sad.
do.
Yeah,
It
of course,
is.
because our baby boomers are now reaching high school. Gosh, personally, I mean, this really upsets me a lot. This is why I'm very much involved with, we've talked about this, I think, before on one of the shows, Dr. Luvis Mara, and we're doing this project where we're using technology to train our high school kids on vocational skills. And God willing, if this pilot project goes well, then we'd like to be able to disseminate this everywhere as much as we possibly can, because obviously what should be happening is a lot of our kids should be receiving training and teaching in job preparedness, right? Vocational skills, the adaptive skills, like, as an adult or a teenager, a lot of our kids don't even know how to take care of themselves in society. So I guess I really need to try to focus and do more for the adults and adolescents population. We have said this before, Shannon, and I keep forgetting to do this. I need to figure out a way to put our Card 2 series of lessons or programs online somehow. It's just a list at this point, because it's, when you go into skills, which is our early curriculum, it will take you to a mental age of 8. And your child could be 15, yet their skill level falls below 8 in some areas, and therefore you'll have tons and tons of lessons to be able to teach your child. But the Card 2 program really focuses a lot more on vocational, adaptive, things that are more appropriate for that age range. And it becomes really essential to teach those things. What do? I guess you do the same thing that anybody else does. You call for an IEP, you find the particular goals that are necessary, you fight to get them into your child's IEP, perhaps you even fight to get a one-on-one instructional aid, perhaps depending on the state you're in, you get insurance coverage and you hire behaviorists who will come and teach your child the specific things. I don't care if they're 6 or 16. Like, there's a lot of stuff that can be taught and should be taught. If you have a behaviorist, the behaviorist will often go to the school and train all of the people in the classroom and school and so on. You do the same thing. You don't stop fighting. You just keep going at it. And it's sad. It's tremendously sad, because again, it goes back to, I can't blame anyone for it. The schools don't have resources. I mean, look at us. We try to do as much as we can, and then there's, every time I'm on this show, there's like 5 more things I want to do. None of us have enough time to do the things that we really want to do.
It's true. But the thing that overriding in my mind at this moment, there's an expression in the autism community about when something happens, sometimes you just have to get your dress dirty. You have to get into the mud and muck it out and be your child's advocate and get your dress dirty.
Absolutely.
And sometimes when somebody else gives up on our kids, we have to be the person. And I know that you have not given up on your child. I know that that's not even a possibility for you, but you're going to have to get your dress dirty and go in there and ask them to do something different, and they may or may not greet that and say, oh yes, thank you for your advice on this. But still, the one thing I know for sure is that if you go in and advocate for your child, not only will things get better for your child, maybe not immediately, but somewhere down the road, but you will have made it easier for the next person coming behind you.
Exactly. And that's why I wanted to say, make sure that you connect with local parent groups, because there might be someone who's gone through what you're about to go through. And sometimes when I talk to parents who are not close to one of our locations and they really need help, and I connect them with a FEET group in their area, oh my God, the parents are warriors. They've been through everything. A lot of find other parents who are in your area who've been through similar things. They can often be your best advocates.
Absolutely. Well, great advice. Now, we had somebody do a follow-up for us, and they said, would it be possible to do a kid-friendly segment, kid-to-kid type, to introduce autism? So something we'll have to consider doing at some point. And then they also added, wouldn't it be neat to see a commercial from our kids to define autism? I think that's a great idea.
Oh my gosh, that's a brilliant idea.
And getting some of our recovered kids, as well as some of the kids that are in the process right now, to do a commercial to define autism.
Okay,
Great idea.
I'm gonna put some energy into that one.
That's great.
That's a beautiful one.
Isn't that?
Thank you for that idea.
Absolutely.
I will send that in. And Shannon, that actually reminded me to ask you something, because we get so many questions, so many emails from people saying that they record the show and then listen to it on their drive or stuff like that. how difficult is it for us to try to get on satellite radio?
That's a really good question.
We should
I will
probably
look into
try,
that.
because it seems like a lot of people would like to listen to this while they're driving.
Yes, we've heard from a lot of parents lately saying that they're downloading an iTunes, making CDs, and listening to it while they're driving.
Right.
So, great idea. I will look into that today.
Great.
There we go. Okay. Somebody wants to know if you have any plans to open a card office in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. I know you're in Chicago, but I was wondering if you have looked into it. As always, thank you for everything.
Oh my gosh, I'm so glad that it's so amazing that this parent wrote this. Thank you, whoever wrote that, because we have a process here where we have a supervisor and a manager, so an administrative manager and a supervisor manager, and the two of them, their job is to open new sites. And what they do is they will move to a certain location, develop the area. So the supervisor is board certified, and both are very experienced, very good, and luckily for us, husband and wife, so it works out really great. And what they'll do is they'll set up the office, hire therapists, train the therapists. Their job is startup.
Right.
And they had a very successful year. They were in the Boston area, and they actually opened in Plymouth, and they're currently opening the second one in Boston, and they will be done. And they are done now. And so they've been asking, what's our next station? Where do we go next? Where do we go next? And we have, what we generally do is we will respond to two types of things. One is we'll look at our funding sources, and a lot of our funding sources, let's say managed healthcare organizations, will ask us and say, we have a lot of patients that need your help in, let's say, such and such city, and then we will specifically go there. The other thing we do is we will look at our what we call workshop list. And so these are families that we've been working with, but they're not close to one of our locations. And there's hundreds of families all over the country where a supervisor goes and visits them and hires locally, trains people, and oversees their program and goes back and forth all the time, right? So we've looked at our workshop list, and there's two areas that each have about 6 or 7 families. And what I really need, and then this is the announcement I'm making here, which I love the fact that somebody reminded me to do that, is, honestly, if I have any area where there's approximately, let's say, more like 10 to 20 families, and there is funding, obviously, because this sort of thing can get very heavy for families.
Yeah, so we want to have that insurance factor.
We want to have insurance factor. In other words, we want to start out with, hopefully it's an insurance state. Of course, we'll go anywhere. We don't care if it's an insurance state. The only thing is, if we go somewhere else, then the burden of the funding falls on the families, and that becomes a little bit harder.
Right.
But really what we're looking for is around 20 families in any general area. They do not have to be, they can be 30 miles apart, but general area or city, and then that'll be our next city to develop. So if there are people out there listening right now, I would ask that you write in, and you can write into this show even.
Yep,
you
absolutely.
guys are kind
ferry
enough
it.
would let me know, so that we can start developing that list. And I should actually I wanted to ask them to put that on our social media sites as well, and make sure that people are writing in. Because I think there were 2 areas. One was, it was West Virginia, I think. Is there a Charleston area in West Virginia? I don't know where that is exactly. And then there was another one that was, I think it was in Kentucky. I'm not sure. But there were 2 cities where we had something like 5 to 6 families already there.
Okay.
So then the process becomes, we get the list of families, we check their coverage for them, we communicate with them, we will send out a supervisor to do their initial meeting and evaluation and get to know their children and identify exactly what the child needs, and then we'll gather it all up. And I think we open offices in the location when we pass when we reach somewhere around 500 to 1,000 therapy hours. In other words, there are 20 families and you add up all their therapy hours in a month, then you're looking at 500 hours, then that makes it financially feasible for us to come out and actually do a physical site.
Okay.
And then once there's a physical site, within about 3 months, it's packed solid. So like we'll hire all the therapists we need, train everyone, transfer additional therapists, transfer staff, transfer supervisors. We build it up real fast.
Right.
And then once it's built up, like, you know, our sites tend to max out at about 50, 60 children, and then we'll open another one and so on, and we'll develop the area. Having said that, what we're doing this year, we're really focusing on center-based model. We will do home-based for anyone who wants home-based. In other words, all our therapists will travel to your home, to your child's school, wherever you want us to do the intervention. But we're also offering a new thing, which we've done in several of our sites now, which means for parents who have to drive to work, you can drop off your child at our center. And there you can receive all their intervention, kind of like a school setting. And it could be during school hours, after school hours, it doesn't matter. We have a broad array of programs. So if anybody is interested in this sort of thing, on the CARD site, on the centerforautism.com site, just send us an email. When you do send the email, please make sure that it goes to the workshop department, or it could also be called remote services. And that way we'll take care of you and make sure that you either get services now or you go on a list of parents where we're grouping them in order to be able to open a site.
And if for any reason you have difficulty finding that, you can always send it to us and we will make sure that it gets to them as well.
Absolutely.
And we have another question. I think we still have time. Somebody wants to know, does CARD accept insurance of any kind, including state insurance? So absolutely.
Yes, we do.
Okay.
We accept everything.
Absolutely. So
but
there we go.
Having said that, yeah, we haven't rejected insurance due to rates. Insurance companies are generally pretty fair in the rates that we receive. However, there's been a couple of cases where an insurance company has come to us and said, we would like you to use our software to track the child's progress, and we have found pretty significant faults with their tracking system. In other words, they're tracking incorrectly.
Okay.
So you're tracking, let's say, trials that are prompted, so they shouldn't be considered master trials, all sorts of crazy stuff.
Okay.
Or it's graphing incorrectly, or in other words, the results of the child will come up wrong.
Okay.
And we've told them, we won't use your software. You need to learn from us and do our software, because your software is going to show this child not doing so well.
Right.
And then in some cases, they've rejected us because we fight that issue.
Okay.
But it's very uncommon. We generally accept everything.
And again, we want to say that Bryce Myler in the contracts department, if you have questions, and we frequently run a little spot with Bryce speaking, but you can go to the centerforautism.com. There's a toll-free number there. We'll put the toll-free number up as well. You can call in and start the conversation with someone to see if you can have CARD in your area.
Right, absolutely.
Or
we'd
if you're
love
eligible
that.
for a workshop or to work it out. You know, there's different considerations. Just like we say, you know, we can't give child-specific advice. With insurance, it's all different.
Oh my gosh, there's so many different policies.
So many different contingencies. So I don't want to be in a position where we say, oh, you know, it's always this, because there is no such thing as that as insurance, is what I'm learning.
That's right.
It's all individual. What your employer allows and the person next to you. You can be in the same state, same laws, different policies.
You could be in with the same employer and have 10 different types of policies.
Wow.
Like here at CARD, we have several different options, right? If you pick a PPO versus an HMO versus a POS versus whatever, the coverage is going to differ, the deductibles, the co-pays, all of that.
Yeah, so there's no one size fits all, but really if you call and talk to the contracts department and talk to Bryce Myler, you have your best bet. Now, Emily, do I have time for one more question? I do. Fabulous. Okay. This is a terrible one to end on, but let's do it. My teenager is depressed and tells me he hates his life. I don't know what to do for him, and I don't know where to go.
Oh my gosh, yeah. Oh, I don't know. Email us. We'll try to help wherever you are. We have a lot of kids coming in like that, teenagers who are depressed because they just don't fit in one way or another, and that's just the saddest thing ever. that's one of those things where I wish we had more resources to help. Like, this is a very big thing, and I see a lot of kids going into this because, you know, anxiety and depression are very, very related. And I think when they're younger, our kids have a lot of anxiety, and when they get older, that anxiety turns into depression because it's sort of a learning of helplessness. It's kind of like, I don't fit in, and I feel lonely, but I don't know how to fix this. Like, I don't even know how to fit in, and I don't know why they don't like me, and it's just horrible. And it's a lot easier, actually, to fix than you would think. And it's more just cognitive therapy. And we do a lot of work with teenagers. We do have a lot of teenagers that it's growing. I guess I would we haven't had the time to really write a lot in this area, but if you do write into us on an email, then we'll try to gather some of the relevant references, I guess, for you so that you can read what's out there. And there are some very good people in this field, you know, in the field of dealing with like adolescents with Asperger's and so on, and reading some of that work might really help you figure out how to handle this, unless we can help. If you're close to us, we'd be happy to help.
I'm sort of feeling like it's sort of like autism. It's not something we want to wait. It's not going to get better on its own. We want to get in there and do something.
Absolutely. I mean, I have teenagers that have gone to cutting or have become suicidal, and the issues are the same. It's very, very important to deal with those things pretty fast. So do write to us and let us know where you are, because that's going to be key, knowing where you are. And just right off the top of my head, you might want to look at Tony Atwood's work online. He is not only a spectacular writer, he has tons and tons of books on this whole issue, and he gives you very easy advice. He's also a great speaker if you ever have the opportunity to see him. He gives you very good advice on very concrete things you can do, very simple things you can do to help the adolescents with depression and on the spectrum. Absolutely. Great, great advice. Now I believe we are actually out of time. Yes, Emily, or I have time for one more? Quick one. Okay, good. That's a long one. Okay, this is a great one. I'm curious about what advice you would give to parents about how they can be the best possible parent. When you see parents that are getting it done, what does it look like? Oh, that's an awesome question. It looks like parents who have hope and are motivated. Everything follows from that. So the parent is involved because they know they can make a change. So they have hope and they're motivated. The parent is understanding, patient, of course, the good traits of any good parent, right? The traits of any good parent. But at the same time, they push, they don't give up, they're not, you know, and of course having all of that. So it's like, yes, be motivated, continue to have hope, and not be exhausted. And that one is harder to make real for any of us, right? Because we're all exhausted. And we've had this conversation a little bit before. I think good parents starts with taking care of yourself a little bit as well, and being able to be present. Most of the time, both of our parents have to work. Most of the time, our parents have other children to deal with as well. You know, Shannon, I mean, life is packed as it is. To have, like, additional things going on in your life is just like everybody's over the edge, you know, and over the brim. So I would say the parents that really are involved with our program, and they're like a 24-hour therapist. And they are also, you know, they have the ability to see the overall picture and give us a lot of feedback and advice as well. And that can only happen if you as a parent are just feeling good yourself, feeling positive about the future, and can be effective, and you see how it is to be effective. Yeah, I think that's great advice. And I know early on when I looked at parents, and I thought, okay, I want to have what they have. I want to be what they are to their kids who were getting it done. The thing that was consistent for me was the parent at some point said, I made a decision that I was going to do whatever it took. I didn't know where we were going to end up, but I was going to keep doing whatever it took. That's right. So that
And what happens when you think like that is, I think I experienced this, and I don't know about the rest of you, is that when a problem arises, you don't get stuck on the problem. You just see it as something that was going to come one way or the other,
That's
and you
right.
start looking for solutions.
Yeah, you
it's
accept,
not a stopping point.
Exactly. You accept the fact that this is sort of an obstacle course that you're maneuvering through. And I think that strength, that ability to keep going, I think also comes together with having given up guilt.
Yeah.
Like when parents spend too much time on guilt and it turns into blaming yourself, hating yourself, then you start to feel sick, you start to not just give up hope, you start to want to distance yourself from it, all that sort of stuff. Just, it's not your fault. It has nothing to do with you. It is what it is. You were given this blessing because you are strong enough to handle this. Take it, fly with it, experience it, and actually, in the end, you know, a lot of parents end up being the ones that help others. It's an opportunity. Like, look at what you're doing. Like, this is an incredible
But I went through the guilt. I went through the guilt. And I kind of want to make a sign and put it on the refrigerator that says that guilt equals paralysis and hope equals action.
Absolutely.
Because I think that when I'm in the hope part, I'm in action, and that's much better. But you're right, the guilt
it has to do with
equals
motivation.
paralysis.
Yeah, and I mean, that would be an interesting conversation too if you were able to have a conversation with a lot of the other moms. There isn't a single parent that doesn't question themselves.
Yeah.
Did I do the right thing? Did I do it at the right time? Why didn't I see it sooner? Could it be because he fell that day? I mean, there's like a billion things that go through our heads. It has nothing to do with anything.
Yeah.
It's just paralyzing.
Yeah, you're absolutely right. What great advice. Thank you so much for
Thank
being
you.
here today.
Thank you.
I
It
learned
was
so much
lovely.
when you're here.
Thank you so much.
It's really
It's
a
lots
treat.
of fun.
And we will be back with Dr. Doreen next Wednesday. You can keep your questions coming in. We're loving the emails and the Twitters and the Facebook and the live feature questions. They're absolutely wonderful. We're going to take a break. We're going to go to the A Word. This is the amazing documentary being made here at the Center for Autism and Related Disorders. And Dr. Granpeesheh actually talked about joint attention earlier, and this particular episode deals exactly with that very graphically so that you can see exactly what she's talking about in this individual child and how that's being strengthened with this little boy. He's only 2.5 at this point, and they're teaching that joint attention. So you're going to take a look at that. When we come back, we're going to be joined by Nancy Allspaw-Jackson for Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. So take a look. This is the A Word.
Look, good talking. Sassy's the bird now.
Independently tacting and joint attention is a big deal. The reason is that tacting is socially reinforced and doesn't have a tangible reinforcer.
Look, good talking.
Unlike manding, where the reward is getting what you're asking for. This is why Jack Riley has been requesting items. He's immediately reinforced. Tacting, on the other hand, is making an observation in your environment and then sharing with others what you experience. So the reward in tacting is the attention and social interaction. Kids with autism many times aren't naturally socially motivated in the way typically developing children are. Here, Jack Riley is simultaneously tacting with joint attention. Jack Riley looks at the TV, points, and labels the characters. Then he looks at Jessica to check that she is sharing the experience with him, and then looks back at the TV. A key identifying sign of autism is a child's lack of joint attention. They don't initiate having a joint experience, for example, pointing, or responding to other social cues like following a parent's gaze. The way we encourage tacting behaviors is by first practicing it in a contrived manner, like teaching labels, asking,
Well, what is it? Okay, thank you.
We teach them labels so they have words to communicate with. The hope is to fade the prompts until the language happens naturally and often.
The end.
That's the next Lion King. Circle of life.
The end. All right. It's over. Yeah.
Okay. It's all over. It's over, buddy.
You want to play? Do you want to play? Say yes. Yes. Good. Do you want to play? Yes. Okay, here. Do you want one fire truck or two? Two. Two. Okay, here you go. Fire truck. Fire trucks, yeah. Hey, Jack Riley, one more minute, okay? Say okay. Okay. All right. All right, buddy. Come over here. Come sit down. Ow.
Jessica and Jack Riley are continuing to work on identifying categories since he knows so many labels now.
Hey, mister. That was good sitting, but you gotta face me, okay? Turn around. Turn around. Thanks. Do you want bubbles, phone, or fire truck? Phone. Say I. I want phone. Okay. Toys. Hold on, buddy. I know. Hold on. Ready? Say I'm ready. I'm ready. Okay. Give me a vehicle. Vehicle. Good job. What is it? Vehicle. Nice. Good job, kiddo. Right. Hold on. Hold on. Ready? Say I'm ready. I'm ready. Okay. Give me animal. Good job. What is it? Animals. Good job. There you go. Here's another sticker for you. Give me toys. Toys. Nice job. What is it? Toys. Yeah, but what is it? Say toys. No, say toys. Toys. Good. What is it? Toys. There you go, mister. Nice job. Give me animal. Good job. What is it? Animals. Nice. All right. Last one. Give me, hey, look at me. Look at me. Good job. Give me food. Cat. Nice job. What is it? Animals. No, this one. What's this one? Animals. No. What is this? Food. Food! There we go! All right. Here you go. Buffalo. Yeah. There you go, mister. Do you want more Twinkle Twinkle Little Star? More? Ow. Do you want more? Boy. Say I. I want boy. Okay, we're gonna sing first. Head, shoulders, knees and toes. Knees and toes, head, shoulders, knees and toes, knees and toes. Knees, toes. What's next? Eyes and ears and mouth and nose, head, shoulders, knees, toes, knees and toes. Yeah! That was very good. High fives. Oh, too slow. High five. Ah, too slow. There you go. Ah, yay! You did it. Good boy. Okay, I get you your peekaboo wild, okay? Okay, where's my peekaboo wild? Let me go get it for you. There you go. So silly. He's gotten so much better. He knows the words now, which is really, really cool. And it helps him with labeling his body parts too. So a lot of the body parts I think he learned from the song before we even started on them.
Knowing the song also prepares Jack Riley for preschool. By knowing the words and movements, he will be able to participate in social activities that his peers will be doing.
Welcome to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. I'm Shannon Penrod.
And I'm Nancy Allspaw-Jackson, and I just love being here every Wednesday morning to catch up with my buddy,
It's a thrill for me.
my Autism Warrior Mom partner in fighting for everything we have to fight for, and hopefully educating and entertaining you. Sometimes I feel we're a little like Ethel and Lucy, or I don't know who. But
Well, and listen, I know I'm Ethel in that scenario. If people are wondering, I know that I'm Ethel in that because you have the energy. That's what you bring in the door. It's like a booster shot. I go, Nancy's here. I have more energy. So I'm happy to be your Ethel.
Okay.
Thrilled to be your Ethel.
Okay. You know, I want you to know that I've had an extreme diet change lately. This is new. We do news usually at the top of the hour. This is not necessarily autism news, but, you know, I started on more of a raw food, vegan, and my husband, who's been challenged with prostate cancer, got him on that diet. We've given up all dairy, all white flour, all sugar, all caffeine, although I do have my chai tea lattes with soy milk. Okay. And it's given me even more energy.
Really?
Yes.
Okay, that frightens me a little bit. Just a little bit, because you are the Energizer Bunny.
Okay.
I want to just have a little bit of your energy. And you do. You bring it and you share it.
All right,
but
good.
That's and you look good. I've seen and I've heard you talking about this diet, so we'll have to see if it's something that rubs off on
and also
me.
if it's something that sticks with me. Because,
Yes.
you know, the whole key is staying on these things.
Yeah.
But I think nutrition is so important, which leads us right into our first news story.
Absolutely.
Right?
And I assume that you're talking about the folic acid.
Yeah, this is a big one, because didn't it hit yesterday?
It hit yesterday. It hit late yesterday, and everybody was talking about it. This idea that if you take folic acid during your pregnancy, that you're going to reduce significantly your chances of having a child who ends up on the autism spectrum. Now, we've heard of folic acid before.
Yes, and don't all pediatricians recommend it?
They're supposed to.
Wyatt, once again, to refresh everybody, my son was adopted at birth. His birth mother was 19, and I do not believe she was on any vitamins because she did not tell anybody she was pregnant until she was 7 months pregnant. Then in her 8th month, we got her on vitamins. So there, I'm like thinking, okay, well, she didn't have folic acid.
Right.
So maybe that made him more of a risk. I don't know.
I don't know, but I can remember because we had a little bit of difficulty getting and keeping pregnant.
Okay.
And I had been told that the minute that we were even thinking about it, folic acid, months before, that not necessarily starting when you're pregnant, but if you haven't started before, do it. But for a whole host of other things, like I believe spina bifida was one of the things that they were telling us.
Yes, I remember, because I took folic acid when I was trying to get pregnant before we found out that I was infertile and blah, blah, blah. But,
the journey.
Yeah, the journey. But this is a really big study
It is a big study.
It was published in the Journal of the American Medical Association. So we're not talking about some fringe, a lot of times people think, well, is that some fringe biomed kind of thing? But no, this is very mainstream, right, Shannon?
Exactly. And in this case, too, a lot of times we hear about studies and it's a smaller group of children, but we're talking about 85,000 Norwegian children that they looked at to come up with this number of a 40% reduction in the possibility of having a child with autism if you're taking that folic acid while pregnant.
Okay.
That's significant, 40%.
significant.
Now, I will say, of course, it's not completely going to get the job done. I took the folic acid and I still have a child on the autism spectrum. So it's not the heroic one pill shot, but if you can reduce your risk, why wouldn't you?
Right. Okay.
And one of the things when we were talking about it last night and you said, and there's no good reason not to take the folic acid.
No good reason not to, it looks like at this point.
There's no side effect that comes from it.
The pediatricians recommend it. Now we're finding that it's being recommended so you can lower the risk of your child having autism. And also, it is found in many foods. Folate, the natural form of folic acid, is found in lentils, spinach, black beans, peanuts, orange juice, romaine lettuce, and broccoli. No surprise, very healthy foods, a lot of vegetables in there, and there's nothing but good that can come from that.
Absolutely.
Okay.
I do find it remarkable that they said, according to the March of Dimes, that 2/3 of women do not, at this point in time, know how important it is to get folate and folic acid. 2/3. That's a shockingly high number.
It is.
But that's according to the March of Dimes.
Okay.
So anyway, take your folic acid and tell your friends, tell your girlfriends. Don't assume that they know. And I don't know about you, but when there are people now in my life that say, okay, Shannon, I see that you have a child on the spectrum. We're thinking about having a child. What do you know that would help reduce the risks?
Yes.
And now we have something to add to it.
Okay.
Folic acid.
Good.
Tell them.
Okay, and eating issues, another story that came out, which is no surprise to those of us that have children on the spectrum.
Absolutely. Basically, they found that our kids on the autism spectrum are more likely, more susceptible to have eating issues. But what I love about this is they're saying, don't overlook it. Don't think, oh, they're going to outgrow it.
Right.
I think sometimes people just have this assumption that my child is a picky eater, and that it isn't necessarily the case. With autism, they might have an eating issue.
Well, from my experience, and certainly with Wyatt, he didn't, for the first couple of years of his life, touch anything but milk, cheese, and carbohydrates.
Yeah.
And ask most any parent of a young child with autism, and especially those considering the gluten-free, casein-free dairy, casein-free diet, I'll often get, when I recommend that diet, for parents to try.
Yeah.
We don't know if it's going to work with every child. It happened to work with my child. After being on it for no more than 2 or 3 weeks, he went from one word to several words at a time. And there was no other intervention we did.
Right.
So I graphed it. So I just say try it. And it's no surprise to me that so many children on the autism spectrum will only eat Cheetos and those kinds of things. And I oftentimes will see some of the older kids on the spectrum or adults on the spectrum, and I see them eating, that bag of Cheetos or Doritos, and they're overweight.
Right.
And I think, the parents probably never got the eating under control.
Yeah, we had Julie Matthews from Nourishing Hope on the show on Monday.
She's got some great
amazing
advice.
And I encourage people to check it out if you missed that interview. And one of the things that she said is that when parents come in sometimes for the initial advice and they talk about the gluten-free, casein-free, there's this thing of fear because they say that's all my child is eating.
That's all my child eats.
And even if it's something else, if your child is only eating one category of foods, you really need to pay attention to that because it is very likely that that food is creating a problem.
Right. Now, for us, we had a ABA therapist, a food therapist, work with Wyatt to introduce the foods, and every time he would eat one of the non-preferred foods, then he would get rewarded with a bite of the preferred food. And then we built that and built that and built that to where now he is eating protein. He was not touching anything like chicken or fish, and he's eating all kinds of vegetables. But that's been a very difficult road for us.
And I do think getting help and support, and that's really what they're suggesting from looking at this this data, that children are more likely on the spectrum to have an eating issue. Get some help and support. Don't have it be a battle at the table every night. You've got enough to worry about, and what a great example that your therapists help you to do that.
Yes. Yeah.
Wonderful. And then, of course, another study that's come out that has shown that we might be able, another key to getting earlier diagnosis, that they looked at very young children for signs of attention deficits. And this was a Yale Child Study Center. They conducted a study and looking at small infants to show a potential of a symptom of an autism spectrum disorder. There were 67 infants in this particular study that were at high risk, that they identified through other factors for developing ASD, and 50 infants with a low risk, so that they have that control group. They were shown a 3-minute video, and the researchers used an eye tracking device to see where their attention went. And they showed them a scene with toys and a woman in the video, because we're always looking at that. Are kids drawn to people or things?
Okay.
And what we see with children who are diagnosed with autism spectrum disorder, that frequently they're much more drawn to the things than the people, and then we have to work on changing that. We just saw a video with Jack Riley, the A word. This particular episode was about that very thing, because his attention is starting to shift to people. Anyway, the findings show that infants who were later on went on to be diagnosed with autism autism, they were in a specific group. Their attention was not as strong as the children who did not end up with a diagnosis.
Okay.
So this may be a key factor in looking even younger, that we may be able to identify the markers and help those children even earlier. And when we know that early intervention is key in making progress, this may be some good news.
Yeah,
long-term.
you know, my question is, what are the signs of ADD in an infant? Because obviously, I mean, I remember very clearly when Wyatt started to walk, and around a little over a year, I remember very clearly him being the most hyperactive kid around, running around the house, you know, just constantly running from here to there. And, you know, I used to I used to say, oh, well, he's just very active.
Right.
He's just very...
Boys,
but
they're
that
busy.
but that
Busy
was
pants.
clearly a sign there.
Yeah.
But with infants, I don't know how I would... You know, a 6-month-old, how I would find a symptom of hyperactivity.
Well, and one of the things that they're determining is that we know early on kids orient to things. That their eye gaze will orient. It should orient to mom. Mom's feeding them. They should be making eye contact. But what they're seeing in these kids was that when looking at a video, they were looking at the things instead of the person.
Instead of the person.
Exactly. So it, you know, and it's still early days with this kind of thing. But if a child isn't orienting, I mean, I can look back and realize that when I was nursing Jem, he could not nurse and make eye contact with me as an infant. He could make eye contact with me any other time, but he couldn't nurse and make eye contact. And I think back on that and go, okay, was that an early symptom? Because I remember thinking it was weird. They would talk about all the videos about how this is a great time whether you're bottle feeding or breastfeeding, that your child orients to you and they're looking and you have this wonderful, he couldn't do it.
Okay.
If I looked at him, he would look at me and totally stop sucking.
Yeah.
And until I looked away and he looked away, then he could suck for all day.
Right.
But not the two together. So, you know, we do want our children to be stimulus orienting. It's something that we teach, and it can be taught to somebody who's 108 if they can't do it. But very young babies start to do that. They orient first to parent, then they'll orient to sounds, and then to things. But slightly different maybe for kids who ultimately end up on the spectrum.
Okay.
Interesting.
Well, this is at the Yale Child Study Center.
Yep.
And so I imagine there'll probably be more research done in this direction.
Absolutely.
Because it says the findings of the study can now be used to identify new treatment targets and new early intervention strategies.
Absolutely. We
for
love that.
professionals in the field, right?
Wonderful. And we have I'm very excited about the guest that we have today that you brought to us.
She's a very good friend of mine,
Yes.
who actually we did a book together.
Yes.
And she has now become the fearless woman photographer. She's a brilliant photographer and well known for her books. And her name is Mary Ann Halpin, and she's got a great project coming up with Act Today, our Kid Activist campaign.
Very
and
cool.
we're going to tell you about that because she's going to be photographing kids to be a part of this. And when you see her work, you'll want your child photographed by Mary Ann because she's just brilliant.
And how lovely that it's raising money for autism
Yes,
care and
it
treatment
is. She's
today.
giving all the proceeds from the portrait shoots to Act Today, but we're going to tell you all about that campaign when
after
we
we
get back.
take a break. All right,
Okay.
so we'll be back with Mary Ann Halpin after these messages.
When you find out you're having a boy, you always think like, oh, he's going to play football, he's going to do this and that. And then when he's diagnosed, all those things get washed away.
It's like that piece that's always in the back of your mind, you know, where is he, what is he doing, is he safe?
We really didn't know what we were dealing with. I wish that they could have directed me a little bit more and provided me some information.
I was a young mom. I didn't know what it was like to raise a boy, despite a boy with autism.
Hundreds of thousands of families are not getting the help they need for their children with autism all around the country. Act Today is determined to bridge the gap. These families really have to go through a lot to get a grant. The application process isn't easy. The records, the diagnosis proof, they're really battling for their kids. So when we can give them a grant, it is so wonderful to see that they succeed in getting that help for their children. Our founder, Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh, is an amazing woman, and she is one of the world's foremost authority on behavior of children with autism. She's extremely knowledgeable, and she oversees every single grant we give, she is part of that process. People may think of autism care and treatment as simply schooling or therapy, but we provide important safety supports, things like fencing, for example. The whole family's living in fear of that child running out into traffic. I recently delivered an iPad to a little boy with some of the apps that are out there for children with autism. Miracles happen.
I got the iPad from ACT.
From ACT,
What
yes.
did it say? Can you repeat that, Dustin?
I got the iPad from ACT.
We have helped so many military families, and when I think of these brave families that are fighting two battles, one to protect our country and one for the right treatment and care for their children, it breaks my heart, and I think we have to do more as a nation to help them.
There's not a day that doesn't go by that we don't think about it. Some people say, oh, he's normal. You don't see the battles that I see every single day. My husband does have to deploy, and when they get on that bus, that might be the last time that my kids ever see them.
So I called, and then they informed me that he had received the grant, which was like a blessing from above. I was just like speechless. I just started to cry because, without it, we would have been lost.
The ACT grant was a total miracle, and without that, we wouldn't be able to receive the service dog. So we're so appreciative what they've done for us as a family.
Recently, ACT Today funded a program for military children with autism in San Diego, the Inclusion Films program, which is run by Joey Travolta, and teaches kids on the autism spectrum literal filmmaking skills. They learn how to make a movie.
Are we ready? There you go, got it. Okay. Everything that goes into the process of making a film goes into everyday life. So they're learning life skills, they're learning to collaborate.
It was really nice to know how much they were enjoying this camp, and they're with people who are supporting them and are making them feel great about themselves and their differences and their similarities. And I get two kids that are working together and apart and together and apart, so it's an interrelationship as well as a camp and a learning experience.
It's so fulfilling when I get letters. One stands out for me, a boy who was 14 with Asperger's, and we gave him a grant to go to a drama camp. He wrote to us and said, "Dear ACT Today, thank you for letting me belong for the first time in my life." These kids are remarkable. We underestimate them. They're so knowledgeable, they're so capable, and we can change the life of a family, which means changing the life of a community.
Welcome back to Let's Talk Autism with Shannon and Nancy. We are joined right now in the studio by a fabulous person that I want to let you introduce her, because this is a good friend of yours, and
Yes.
you guys have a relationship that spans a lot of activity and years. So
yes,
I'm going to let you do it.
Since we were 12.
Yeah, I was going to say we are old friends, but I'll change that to long-term friends. Mary Ann Halpin, who is just a brilliant photographer. Mary Ann and I did a book together, which Marilyn Kentz and I wrote, and Mary Ann photographed, which is Fearless Women Midlife Portraits, which had all kinds of examples of women, some famous, some not, like Joni Mitchell is right here. And but a lot of the women were not nationally known women, but women that proved that the second half of life can be more powerful than the first.
Yeah.
So that was midlife portraits. And then my world became kind of the autism world, and Mary Ann continued with this whole fearless women concept, and you've really developed it to such a huge degree. Tell us a little bit about what you've done with it.
Well, it wasn't, be careful what you name your projects,
Yes.
But it wasn't something that I pursued. People say, oh, you're such a fearless woman. I'm not, I say, don't follow me, I'm lost, But it's really inspiring women and men to walk through their fear and embrace their sword of courage to help themselves and help the whole world. It's really become an inspirational movement for everyone, because our world needless to say, has a lot of problems. And so that's where it started. And then I went to this women conference in 2008, and they asked me, they were so taken with the book, they asked me to do fearless portraits. And, you know, I spoke on stage, and I presented the CEO with a big portrait and a sword, and everybody went crazy, 3,000 women. Half of them ran out of the room, and I thought, oh my gosh, I must be really boring speaking about this. But they were signing up to get a portrait. And it meant so much to most of them because they had such challenges in their life that I'd hand them the sword and they would burst into tears. So that kind of became another book, Fearless Women, Fearless Wisdom, out of a lot of the portraits I did from that conference for 3 years. And then to my recent book, which is Fearless Women, Visions of a New World.
Right, which is this one, which has Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh.
Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh,
yes,
who's
the founder
amazing
of CART and the founder of ACT Today.
So
yeah. And you also have calendars.
We did some calendars, and I sell fearless necklaces.
Fearless Women, the sword.
Right,
and,
the
you know.
sword.
And you also do, on occasion, retreats and
Fearless Women
and workshops
and
all kinds of things. So
there's fearless everything.
Great. You are one fearless
well,
leader.
I try to fear less and love more.
Okay, sounds good.
I have to say that the photographs are beautiful.
Thank you.
But the message behind them is incredible, and hearing the stories behind them. And I can completely understand. I don't think there's anybody who could look at these pictures and not want one of themselves. It's very empowering what you're doing.
It is, and in the experience, and I create this little ritual of handing the sword, and it gets a little emotional. I just say, it's your turn now to have a fearless portrait, to honor yourself as the fearless woman. And get so many just tears and within seconds telling me about their life and what they've been through, and that this is really a touchstone for who they really are or who they aspire to be. And that's my messages in all my portraits.
Yeah,
I
you are all about empowerment. That might be an overused word today, but I think it's really applies. That what you're trying to help people do is tap into that source of really their passion of what they want to give to the world, and you believe that each woman, each person, each human being has a real gift to share. So she's crying.
I'm welling
again.
up. I'm welling up because I just think it's amazing.
She
I
cries
roll up all the time.
when she gets
But
inspired.
in the presence of the sword.
Well, I was looking at some of the stories right before we started, and they're very emotional. And hearing about how emotional it is when you hand, because the pictures, everybody looks so fearless, but hearing about that emotion that they get when they get the sword, I'm rolling up.
And I think this is what Mary Ann does is such a good example of my philosophy that your disability is your opportunity. Most of these women that have been in this book show that some crucial thing in their life put them on a different path that they never would have thought of, but they rose to the challenge and they reinvented themselves. So what we decided to do was to take this concept and work with kids, and that all age ranges, and basically do a kid activist portrait campaign. So I think we've got a clip.
Yeah, let's take a look, and we'll come back after
and I need
and
water.
hear more about it.
I think that gives you an idea of the kind of work this woman does.
Level.
And when you go into a studio session with Mary Ann, something magical happens, and you feel so free to express yourself. And you know, you've worked with so many celebrities and a lot of people in front of the cameras. I think you've found a way to unlock that inner personality.
Well, I play music, I make it fun, and you know, I've done so many actors. I was an actress myself, so I dance, I sing, I act goofy, and they feel, well, if I'm that goofy, they can act goofy in front of the camera, or they can be themselves. I allow them to be themselves. So when kids come in, I just let them kind of be, for a minute. And then by the end, we're rolling on the floor, we're laughing, we're having fun. And, I have hats, or I have people bring props if they want, so that we can have, you saw in one of the picture, one of the little girls had a whole series of hats.
Yes.
And that's one of the products we do make. Is that, it's
you have butterfly wings.
We have butterfly wings. We've got bat wings.
Yeah.
We've got flowers, all kinds of things, and little chairs. And
And we should say that the beautiful portrait of the boy, the ginger-haired boy holding the rose, is Wyatt. That's your
my
son.
little boy, and we did
gorgeous
some
portrait.
beautiful work.
Yes.
You did
Yes.
the portraits we got. We couldn't decide. There he is.
There.
And what we ended up doing was buying so many different. We went in for a family session, and I didn't think Wyatt would be able to be that emotional. She got him smiling. We have a whole series of him riding me like a horse. We had his dad and him rolling around on the floor. We had him in his SpongeBob underwear.
In a cowboy hat. So cute. No, I don't think we should put that out there.
Right. But great for mom and dad to have.
So cute.
And the eye contact. I know when I take my son to get a portrait done, I'm frustrated because they won't take the time. My son can make eye contact with the camera, but he's not going to do it right out the gate just because you ask him to.
Right.
So the fact that you take the time and have the patience to get these things out of our kids is amazing.
Well, over the years, and by the way, I don't have children. I just rent them.
Well, sometimes that makes you better at doing it.
I photograph them, I have fun with them, and then I get to send them home. It's wonderful. But I love kids. I think because that's the actress in me, is that because kids come from that beginner's mind. Everything is new. And so until they get too old and they realize, But even so, if we can, even as adults, if I can bring them back to that inner child, and that happens with music, and sometimes I just get up there and wiggling their booty or something, and they start laughing, especially men. It's so funny. It's like, wiggle your booty in there. Corporate guys, when I do corporate, they kind of look at me and then they go, "Oh, this is kind of nice."
And you ladies have come up with something to do that will benefit parents. They get an opportunity to get a gorgeous portrait of their children, but that it has far-reaching effects for a lot of people. So tell us what you two have cooked up.
Okay. Well, we're calling it our Fearless Kid Activist, ACT, because it's Autism Care and Treatment. And Mary Ann has graciously donated her time over 2 full weekends to photograph children to be kid activists. And these kids will end up in a photo montage in Westlake magazine. So you'll see your children in a glossy, beautiful magazine, and they're going to be on the Reuters billboard
in Times Square. It's a big billboard. It'll be up for about 30 seconds, but we get a still of it. So I send a still shot to everybody. All the parents get that, so they can put it out on Facebook. They send it to their family, and they can see that their child was up. And it's actually at the same time it's shown on a billboard, a digital billboard in Las Vegas. So it's really kind of a neat thing. We did that with the cover of my book. So So it's really great. I'm a real advocate for family wall portraits, because nowadays a lot of people they shoot digital and they shoot pretty good,
and they never
put them on the wall.
No.
It ends up in a hard drive or on a CD in the drawer. And I think I always say that having a portrait on the wall of your family is like having a group hug every day.
Yes.
Yeah, and let me tell you, this 8x10 beautiful portrait,
and I signed
that's signed by Mary Ann, and she of course has quite a reputation, is you get by donating, it's $297.
We like that number.
You'll get a 45-minute session.
Okay.
You walk away with this beautiful 8
And for
by
the
10.
little girl, and for all the girls, not little, bigger girls, little girls, we do a little bit of makeup.
Yeah.
And we treat them just so like a little star.
Yeah.
And we have them bring either whatever wardrobe. If we'll do one change, but if we have time, we'll do two. We're probably going to just do it on one background on the white, which I think is really beautiful.
Yeah, the little
and
girls
clean.
aren't going to walk away feeling like they were Beyonce for a day.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so the locations, we're doing it, one in the Calabasas, Hidden Hills, California area on March 23rd and 24th.
Okay.
And then we're doing another one April 6th and 7th at your studio, which is in Universal City.
Right.
And then all the portraits, as we said, will be part of this collage in Westlake Magazine on the Reuters billboard. And we also are looking at doing a calendar similar to this with some of the children, if they want to go on and participate.
With their birthdays in it, and really special events, like, of course, highlighting April is Autism Awareness Month.
Right, that's why we're doing this whole campaign.
So, but all kinds of dates in there that would be really personal for everybody.
Absolutely.
So that would be
amazing. And so,
amazing.
of course, I would imagine that there are only a certain number of slots because it's 2 weekends.
We're only feasibly in 2 weekends, and to give it really quality time, only 30.
Okay.
There's only
So we
30
have 30 slots available. I think right now it's down to 28. We've got
because we just started putting it out there. So get on the phone and call
yes.
or
Do we have
go
a
to Act
number
Today.
we can go to the Act Today. You can go to act-today.org. We're on the website already.
Right.
And you can also call the studio. Can I get that number out?
Sure.
323-874-8500. 323-874-8500. And
although it's better to go to Act Today website, so you do your donation first.
Yeah.
And then you can call me, and then we'll set up. I can talk everybody through, or my husband Joe works with me, and we can set the time at which location and tell you what to bring and all that.
I just want to, if you're thinking, well, why is my kid a kid activist? Well, first of all, any child with autism is a kid activist. They automatically fit that bill. Any sibling of a child with autism, and any child that knows somebody with autism and is kind and open with that child and is accepting. This is all about acceptance. So we want to feature children with autism, family members of kids with autism, and friends.
Yeah.
So it's a huge range. Don't be limited and think, well, my child doesn't have autism, they can't be a kid activist.
No.
Of course they can.
Right, absolutely. and more importantly, there's money to be raised here.
There's money to be raised, and you get something wonderful.
You get something back. So if you were thinking of donating some money, and if you were thinking of getting a portrait, here's a great way to do these two things together.
Yeah.
Now, for people who don't live in California, or this is outside of their budget, because we'll know that at certain points on the journey, this is going to be outside somebody's budget. They can still help to promote this.
Sure,
you
can
let people know about it on your Facebook page.
Because everybody knows somebody around the Los Angeles area, so they can forward the link to somebody that a friend or family and say, this is really great, and how cool to get a really great portrait.
Yeah.
Now also, I am making available bigger prints, in canvas, acrylic, metal, really cool products, and even a little app that has all the pictures on your smartphone.
Oh, how fun.
So we are
do additional packages, you can.
Okay.
Right.
So, but you can put the word out there and let other people know this is a great opportunity for 30 people to get a great portrait of their child and to be giving to a whole bunch of other children at the same time.
Right. Maybe we can what we'll do is we'll post everything on the Autism Live website.
Yes, we will, and we'll put it on our Facebook page. We'll put a link so that you can go to our Facebook page, see that, and be able to donate. Go right to Act Today to donate, and to be able to find the information to be able to book your time in the studio with Mary Ann.
Yes, I think it's going to be I think it's going to be an experience that most children will not forget.
Yeah,
and the adults won't either.
Well, and you were talking earlier about how empowering it was for the adults getting the sword restored and what that was like. Imagine what that's going to be like for a child.
Right.
We were talking about self-esteem earlier with Dr. Doreen Granpeesheh and talking with them about having autism and the self-esteem and to be able to have a portrait. And
we're going to give kid activist certificates that can be framed and put next to their portrait. I'm a kid activist. I made the world a better place for someone with autism.
We're going to try too to do some videotaping, so that we're going to ask kids about, you know, what does it mean to make the world better? What is it? What do you think about what you can do or what others can do? And then also a little behind the scenes. So we want to put something together that people can see afterwards, and everybody we can get it a copy, can get it off of YouTube or something.
Well, this is a great idea, ladies.
It's fun.
I'm
really fun.
so excited about this, and for 30 people, what a wonderful opportunity.
Those 30 lucky people.
Yes,
make their call
30
today.
very lucky people, and all the people who will benefit from the grants who come from that. It's really amazing, taking your talents and putting them together. Thank you so much for being with us.
You're welcome. Thank you. It's fun hanging with both of you.
We'll have to have you
It was
come
great.
back to see the finished products.
So show the
We'll come
pictures.
back and show them.
That'd be wonderful.
Absolutely. All right, we're going to take a break, and we're going to come back. We've got some really exciting information for you. Stick with us.
Hi everyone, welcome back. For the month of February, I thought it'd be a great idea to work on an activity that would help your kiddos identify and label emotions. And to help me out today is my good friend, Jamie.
Hey, Suzanne.
Hey there, Jamie.
Hey, how can I help?
Well, the way you can help me out is that because you're a sock puppet, you can do things with your face that I cannot do.
No way.
Totally. The way you can do it is that, you have interchangeable features, which means you can make super exaggerated faces, which makes it easier for kiddos to identify them and to label them. Hey, I have a favor to ask you.
Yeah?
Can you help us out and show us some of your faces you can make?
Of course. Here we go.
Ooh, you look super mad.
I was super mad.
Can you show us another one?
Sure.
Ooh, you look super sad.
I was super sad.
All right, can you show us one more?
One more.
All right. You look super excited.
I was super excited.
I am too. You know why? Because I really want to show everyone how to make a little buddy like you. So let's get started. The materials you'll be needing are googly eyes, felt, a hot glue gun, imagination, scissors, Velcro, some heavy cardstock, and a clean sock. All right, let's get to it. So the first thing you want to do is you're going to grab your sock. Hopefully it's not dirty and used. It's a clean one. And what you're going to do is that you're going to take your sock, fold it in half like so, and then you're going to take your scissors and cut down. The reason we're doing this is that we're going to make an area for the mouth. The next thing you want to do is you want to trim the inside a little bit, because if you don't, it's going to have an overbite. So I'm just going to take my scissors and just trim a little bit off, not much. Now that this guy is ready, I'm going to take a hard cardstock or note card or whatever you have that's a piece of paper. I'm going to fold it in half. And what I'm going to do with this is going to be the inside of its mouth, the kind of reinforcement so you're able to move its mouth around. So I'm going to just cut it into an oval. And don't worry, if it's a little too big, you can always trim it. With this sock puppet project, the materials we'll be using, like the hot glue, is not something for children. So this is something you're going to be doing by yourself and then asking your child to join in once the puppet is ready to go. All right, now that I got that out of the way, let's start gluing. I'm going to take my hot glue gun and I'm going to glue it on the paper. Okay, once I have that, I'm going to put that in the inside of its mouth, and then I'm going to take the sock and then pull it over the edge and cover it with the glue. All right, so now that I have the bottom part done, I'm going to do the same thing to the top. So now that we have this part assembled, what we're going to do is we're going to take a piece of felt and we're going to cover this area so you don't see all the scraggly stuff. So I have my piece of felt right here. I'm going to fold it in half and I'm just going to cut out a similar oval shape. And again, don't worry if it's too big, you can always trim it after we glue it on. I'm going to glue it inside. All right, now we got pretty much the base of the sock puppet. He's got a moving mouth, but wait, he's got no features. We got to help him out with that. So what I'm going to do is I have these pieces of Velcro that I bought that are already sticky on the back, which makes my life a lot easier. And I'm gonna peel this off and place it where I want his eyes. So one there, and one there. And then I'm also gonna put them also along his mouth. And then if you want to get fancy, you can put some for his eyebrows as well. So now that I have this, we should be making some features for him. I'm alive! Alive! I had a great time with my buddy Jamie, and I hope you did too. Until next time, bye.
Bye. And don't forget to send us your photos at facebook.com/autismlive.
Can you see me? Can you see me flying by your side?
Thank you for joining us.
You had a comment.
We did have a comment that
About
somebody
Mary
wrote
Ann.
in and said, because we were talking about photographers and how hard it
Yes,
is sometimes
when
to
you have
get
a
our
child with
kids.
a spectrum.
And they wrote in and said that Mallory's Photography and Design in Phoenix is, they sponsor, they are involved in autism charities, in particular Autism Speaks.
Great.
And the lady who owns it is also an autism mom.
Great.
And knows how to handle tough situations. She's probably watching this too. And a shout out from your
Oh, a
cousin.
shout out to you.
So we love that. And if you guys have resources, you know, we're global. We're in 103 countries, but sometimes we just need to know where to go to get a picture taken, right?
Yes.
And if you're in the Phoenix area, then Mallory's Photography and Design. And thanks for the shout out about them.
Great.
It's great. Okay,
we talked about our SOS program, and we talk about it.
We've never had enough time at the end of the program to talk about it, and I really wanted to leave time today because this is an amazing thing that's going on, but we don't want people to misunderstand what this new initiative that you guys,
It's a new program, because it's a grant program.
Okay.
Well, the criteria is that the applicant must have an immediate need for treatment support, and if treatment is not found, the applicant's physical safety is in jeopardy.
Okay. So maybe
So
if we
let me give you-
backtrack for a second and say that, because you do grant phases 4 different times in the year.
Yes.
And people can apply during those times for a grant, but they have to wait for the grant.
They have to wait.
And you
This is
fund a
different.
wide variety of different
Right,
things, but there
this
have
is
been some
different.
families who couldn't wait.
Yes, some families have a crisis situation.
Yeah.
And they need treatment immediately.
Yeah.
Now, we've managed to get a grant we had actually the family on the show, the nephew of a couple here in the San Fernando Valley who were originally from Uganda, but now they live here in California. Their nephew was being tortured in Uganda because of his wandering, his eloping and going into villagers' homes there and being mistaken for a thief and a beggar. And he was beaten many times. We were able, the family was able to get him here with some assistance from Act Today, and we provided a grant for a full diagnostic assessment. He had been given a diagnosis of autism by a neurologist in
There's
Uganda.
Crescent. What a great picture.
There's
of
little
Crescent.
Crescent. Isn't he? Oh, I love
He's
that
just
child.
adorable.
Well, I want you to know that this little boy now has been, he was given a grant for an advocate, and that money actually came through my church, Prince of Peace Episcopal, and the advocate has been going to his IEP. He went to the IEP, I think, last week, and
we had the advocate on the show, actually.
Yes, we did, Heyman Hakimi.
Yes.
And he is getting Crescent, I can't officially announce it, but in one of the best autism schools around.
Right.
And then Crescent's, Michael and Pross's daughter also had severe developmental delays, and we provided the advocate for her, Melissa, who is 6 and is in a wheelchair and has many global delays. So she will also be benefiting. So that grant has been fulfilled. We have a couple of other families that I want to talk about. We have Elijah. His special needs include an enclosed padded safety bed. Now, that has been recommended by his neurologist to avoid head concussions and serious injuries because he does have some very repetitive behaviors. He has potentially, he could potentially damage his skull, and we need a safety bed for him. So we're asking people to support Elijah. The Maroney family has 3 children on the spectrum. They live in New Jersey. Their house had further damage. There's the kids. They need a new fence in many places. They don't have enough fencing to keep these children safe.
And some of the it was Hurricane Sandy that
affected them even more so. They needed the fence prior to that, but then they really needed it after that.
Sure, of course.
So those are 2 families we have now. We need to take care of their needs, and then we can take other applications.
So really key, I mean, because it's a great program, and I congratulate you for having decided to do this, because sometimes people can't fit into those 4 times in the year.
That's right.
And
sometimes there's an emergency.
Yeah.
And I want to stress that it has to provide effective treatment and services for autism spectrum disorders. It can't be for funding living expenses, travel, utilities, or clothing. We can't do that.
Right.
It has to fit into autism care and treatment.
Okay, and so important, because we've talked about this before on the show, that you've got issues going on at home, and everybody has issues. You've got issues, I've got issues, everybody who's watching has issues, whether you have a child on the spectrum or not. Everybody's got issues, and then child on the spectrum, and it bumps it up a little bit, right?
Does.
And then sometimes you have emergencies, and we talk about it when your kitchen's on fire. When your kitchen's on fire, you can't be dealing with redecorating the living room.
Yeah.
You got to take care of the fire in the kitchen. And these are families that have fires in the kitchen.
Yeah, they have extreme needs for their children.
Yeah, there are so many things that I'm sure down the road that we'll want to do for Elijah with this self-injurious behavior and the hitting his head, but they have to start with making sure
that he's safe,
that he can be safe and rest, and that his parents can rest when he's resting. Can you imagine not being able to sleep for fear that your child would be banging their head in their bed?
Yeah.
That's a kitchen on fire.
That's a kitchen on fire. And the safety of all our kids on the spectrum is such an issue. We want them to be safe.
Yes.
And once they're safe, parents and caregivers can breathe a sigh of relief and then focus on other things, like behavior therapy or biomedical treatments or things that are going to advance. But we have so many applicants for safety equipment.
Yeah.
So we urge you to donate to this campaign. You can go on act-today.org, read these family stories, and even $5 makes a difference.
Absolutely. And we've talked before about how important it is that we have our children taking part in activities that help get them job ready. And you can put 2 things together. I love it when we kill 2 birds with 1 stone.
Me too.
Do a lemonade stand, have your child work at the lemonade stand so they're getting skills and social skills, and maybe involve some kids from the neighborhood, opportunity to set up play dates while you're doing it. And even if you make $5, $10, $15, send it, you will make a difference.
And your kid will be an activist.
And your kid will be an activist.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
And also, ladies out there that love to cook, and church groups and women's groups, if you wanted to do some sort of fundraiser for us, we would love it. We're open to Rotary clubs. We're open. I spoke with the Soroptimists last week. Do you know what the Soroptimists are?
We were talking about that, but tell me.
They are a sorority of optimist women, and they do good in the community. And I was down in Coronado for the Soroptimist Women's Society, and it was a wonderful experience. So if you have a group that would like to do some fundraising for us, please contact us through our website. There's info@act-today.org, and you can write us, and we do get those requests, and we are just overjoyed when people say, we want to do a fundraiser for you.
Yeah, and don't ever fear that it's too little or too much.
There is no little.
There's no too little, there's no too much.
That's right.
And everything in between. Everything counts. Okay, so Emily, are we taking one more break and coming back?
I think we're taking one more break and coming back about Valentine's.
Nope.
No?
We got 3 minutes, so we're going to talk quickly about Valentine's.
Okay, let's talk about Valentine's. Not my worst nightmare holiday like Halloween. Halloween is, every parent who has a child on the spectrum's worst nightmare.
Right. But here we are. It's about to be Valentine's Day, and a lot of times I'm on this new kick after having talked to Temple Grandin, and she gave me great marriage advice and said sometimes I have to make it about my marriage.
Okay.
And so I'm looking at Valentine's Day a little bit differently this year. But do you have plans for Valentine's Day?
Well, we're actually doing celebrating Valentine's Day tonight.
Oh, very nice.
Today is Ash Wednesday,
Yes.
so we're going to go get our ashes at church at 7 o'clock. Then we're going to go out to dinner. I bought my husband flowers this morning.
Very nice.
I bought, I got one of those Valentine's Day cards like, okay, the trash needs taking out, the refrigerator's broke, the disposal, doesn't work anymore, but we still work somehow, and I love you. I always try to get those cards that convey, we may have our challenges, but one of the things we've done pretty effectively is hung together throughout all this.
Which is priceless.
Yeah, so I just hope everybody that listens to us and everybody who is living with autism day to day takes time tomorrow to love their child unconditionally.
Yeah.
I think that we've been given a gift, and I think that gift is that as parents, we really experience what it is to love unconditionally.
Yeah.
It's easy to love something that's perfect. It's easy to love something that has no problems, that comes in beautiful packaging, and there's no challenges, but it takes real guts and determination to hang in and love a child with these challenges. You're tearing up again.
You are. You're making me cry again.
It's
But
a
it's
gift.
true. It is a
And
gift.
to know that you love your child unconditionally, to have that wisdom, is such a wonderful thing. And as if you're in a relationship, a marriage, or a partnership, and that person shares the challenges of raising a child with autism, and we're all going to have our ups and downs with that, where there are times we don't do it very well. But realize tomorrow that you're heroic. I think you're heroic.
Yeah.
And if somebody doesn't tell you that enough, for all the moms and dads out there that are listening, I think you're heroic, and I think you should give each other a lot of love on Valentine's Day.
Absolutely. And now what I'm doing sounds so menial.
Yeah. Nothing's menial.
But we've decided that because we try to go to Disneyland once a month for a couple of hours, we're going to Disneyland tomorrow for
Good
Valentine's
for you.
Day. And my husband and I talked about it, and I said what I really want for Valentine's Day this year is that both of us are going on a health and wellness regimen.
Okay.
So
Very
that's
good.
what we're giving each other, which we feel is a gift that we're going to give our child, so that hopefully we stick around longer.
Now, one of the pluses, of having a child on the autism spectrum is you get to get the pass to go, not wait in line at Disneyland.
The alleged
Does
pass.
everybody know about that?
The alleged pass. We're not really allowed to talk about it, but there's allegedly a pass that you can get, so you don't have to stand in line.
Now, you
Wink,
go
wink.
to
Yes.
right when you get there.
Yes.
You go to the
It's where the guest services are.
guest services, and
You tell
might
them
have
what's
to have
going on
some
with your
proof.
child.
You
Yep.
might have to have something, but they will let you.
You get an extra pass, allegedly.
You don't have to stand in line.
Somebody says, I share the unconditional love to a beautiful child, and I'm loving it. That's great. We got to go, but I hope that you'll give your kiddos a hug from me.
And happy Valentine's Day.
Yes. Bye-bye for now.
Bye.